morning, students. Today I would like to do a little more discussion. We read the stories, A Chronicle of the Peacock and The Dog of Day 12. This is written by Sadat Hassan Manto and this is written by Intizar Hussain. Now, of course, we have read the stories, we have read the text. Now, there are certain things which are to be discussed as far as these two stories are concerned. The first thing that we should know, and of course by reading the text I told you people also, that both these poems are anti-war poems. Oh sorry, anti-war stories. I'm teaching stories, I'm teaching poems, and essays, and I get confused what is what. Anti-war stories. Okay, what Manto has done, Manto has given you a plain narrative. Plain narrative, he is simply telling you the story, taking the example or taking the making use of the dog in the story, that when people are into war, they have so much enmity that they even forget that to which category of creature they are doing the torture to. Okay, so through a plain narrative, through a simple story, without any complications, he is telling you how what is the nature of the soldiers of two different armies and how they I should say ill-treated this dog and they killed him, right? I will further add to it. Second thing, because right now I'm just talking about the narrative, the story, how it has been told. As far as Hussein's Chronicle of Peacock is concerned, chronicle is basically a record. You know, you are making a record of, say, the history or a record of various events that have taken place, right? Now, a Chronicle of the Peacocks, this narrative has been narrated in a way that it tells you, the narrative uses myths and stories to explain the senselessness of war. Plain narrative, which is again telling senselessness of the war. Here also it is telling us about senselessness of war, but it is not a plain narrative. It uses myths. Hussein has used myths and Hussein has used stories to explain or to compare or to juxtapose how war is a senseless and a useless thing, right? Now let us talk particularly about A Chronicle of the Peacocks. What Hussein has done, Hussein has used over here a combination of parable and a fable. मैंने यहाँ definition लिखी है, I will read that, लेकिन उससे पहले मैं आपको plainly समझा देती हूँ. Parable is when you are telling a moral story, say from Jesus' life, and you are using characters who are humans. Moral lessons, but you are using characters who are humans. That is a parable. And mostly it is from the lessons that are told by Jesus in gospel. So religious moral stories which have humans as character. As far as a fable is concerned, ये ना story की ही category है. जब हम अपना master in philosophy करते हैं और हम अपना genre choose करते हैं, genre novel. ठीक है? When we read novel, then these are the various categories which fall into the category of story. Not novel, but story. And this is a kind of story, parable, and second kind is fable. Fable very simple. बचपन से स्टोरी सुनते आ रहे हैं, पंचतंत्र की कहानियां देखी हैं, सुनी है. That is a fable. When a moral lesson is told to you using animals. Animals are used as characters and the story is, or the moral lesson is given to you. Say for example, all of us have heard the story of the hare and the tortoise, right? Where you are given a lesson that slow and steady wins the race. So that is what is a fable. Now, Hussein, the writer of the Chronicle of Peacocks, has used parables and fables, or let us say the myths from the past, and he has tried to bring forth that why war is a useless thing, why war doesn't bring us anything, it only brings enmity, it only brings hatred to us. Okay, and Hussein uses peacocks, Hussein uses swan, and Hussein uses ducks. They are not giving moral lessons over here. Moral lessons are taken through the myths over here. Through these three animals, what is Hussein telling us? That how the destruction is caused by war to any kind of living person, living thing, living creature on the world. Okay, various times peacock, he has told us that the peacock is sad, the peacock runs away when it sees him, and the swans, the royal swans, they do not exist anymore, he says, and the ducks, they are laden with what? The slimy water of the well, let us say the residues of war. Now basically what Hussein has talked about over here is the nuclear weapons that are used in war, especially in the context of India and Pakistan. That is what Hussein has done. Okay, so you should keep in mind this when we are dealing with a chronicle of the peacocks. Now first thing, a chronicle is a factual written account of important or historical events. This I told you, basically the records which are factual, which belong to history, right? In the order of their occurrence. Chronicle, इसीलिए chronicle बोले, नहीं तो record of the peacocks भी लिख सकते थे, but chronicle because it is presented in a chronological order, in a proper order, how they have taken place, how they have occurred. And peacocks, he says, I will first rub the board because I want to use some space. Now what do peacocks, they symbolize for us, for all of us, for all humans who have an eye for nature, who have an eye for animals? They say that they suggest beauty, they suggest grace, they suggest dignity and elegance. Okay? And through the use of these animals, what is Hussein trying to tell us? That how our environment is affected by war. What destruction war brings to the nature all around. So through their examples, Intizar is trying to tell us all these things. That every object of nature, or let us talk particularly about peacocks who represent grace, beauty, they no more do that. Every time when the writer Hussein, he is in India, whenever he tries to see a peacock, he always finds sitting lonely, sitting sad, and every time, and scared also, because every time it sees the writer, it fly away. Okay, and so through this, the poet, the story writer, is telling us that how it affects our environment in which these animals, they live and they flourish. So these are the aftermaths. And modern war, they say, it has polluted the water and air and is no longer suitable for living beings, be it peacocks, be it swans, be it ducks. So these are what? These are the aftermaths of destructive wars. Okay, this is what he's trying to tell us. And now let us talk about the various stories and legends through which Hussein brings out the story of, or through which the Intizar brings about the chronicle of anti-war. The first and the foremost story is of the peacock being thrown out of the paradise. Why it was thrown out of the paradise? As Hussein's Dadima tells him that because it had done the blunder of not recognizing the old man. Who was the old man? The old man was Saturn. Okay, and the peacock took pity on the old man and brought him into the paradise, because of which it was thrown out of the paradise and along with Adam and Eve. Okay, this was the blunder that the peacock had done. Okay, the next mythical story or the legend Hussein mentions in the story is that of King Manu. Okay, King Manu was once swimming in a let us say in a river, and he catch holds of a fish, and he brings that small fish to his home, to his kingdom, and he keeps it in a tank. The fish keeps growing, and it grows so much that King Manu had no option but to go and put it in the ocean. And when he was about to put it in the ocean, what the fish says? The fish says that I am Matsya. Matsya, one of the avatars of Lord Vishnu. So I am making a prediction that there will be so much flood that everything in the world will be destroyed. But you are a nice person, you are a good man, so I suggest you that make a big boat, and in that big boat you put all the good creatures, plants, animals, and all good man and women, good humans on the earth, and you all sail in that boat. And जो prophecy उन्होंने दी थी, that came true. It rained heavily for 7 days and everything came to an end. There was water all over, but what was saved? Only the creatures who were on Manu's boat were saved. So this is another myth which Hussein has mentioned in the story. And the most important story, or let me say the legend which Hussein has used is the war of Kurukshetra. Now you know the very story of not the story but the very question which Parikshit asks, you know, he asks Vyasji that when all wise men were on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, why did they not use their brains? What had happened? Let me tell you again from the beginning. Dronacharya was the guru of Pandavas and Kauravas, right? And his favorite disciple was Arjun. Arjun को उन्होंने ब्रह्मास्त्र यूज करने का तरीका बताया था, but with a promise that he will never use it because it will lead to destruction, right? Ashwathama, who is Dronacharya's son, when the war is taking place and they know that we are losing, Ashwathama releases his Brahmastra, right? His father had told him how to use the Brahmastra, and Arjun is asked by Lord Krishna that you also release your Brahmastra to diminish the effect of the Brahmastra used by Ashwathama. But what happens? Vyasji comes in, and because he sees that a lot of destruction is going all around in the world, and he says that take it back. Arjun takes it back, right? He has no option, but he takes it back. He obeys Vyasji, but this man Ashwathama, he says, I have not been taught how to take it back. Okay, and he says, I can only do one thing. He changes the direction of the Brahmastra from the Pandav army to the women of Pandavs, and he said that they will remain barren forever and ever. And because of this, Ashwathama, because of the destruction that he caused about all around, he was given a curse that he will wound for 3,000 years. Okay? Now, two things which you have to keep in mind out of this story. Barren हुए, Pandavs की women, they were barren, they could not bear a child. But because Subhadra, जो कि कृष्ण जी की sister थी, her daughter-in-law, Abhimanyu's wife, Uttara, she gave birth to a dead child, stillborn child. लिखा है ना book में, dead child. But because Shri Krishna had promised Subhadra that your kin will be the heir to the Pandavas family, so he puts life again into that child, and that child is Parikshit, whose coronation, जिसकी crowning की जा रही है, and Vyasji is also there. Then Parikshit asked the question that when so much destruction was called, Brahmastra एक ऐसा weapon था which could destroy all the three worlds, Akash, Patal, Lok and the Dharti, right? And why was it used then, he said? He says, war, it did not give us anything. हम victorious हैं, but we got victory at such a big loss, right? That is what he questions. And Vyasji is not having a very good answer, but he just evades the question, ignores the question by saying, but जो उन्होंने जवाब दिया, that too is a reality. That even wise men, intelligent people who have a good sense of reasoning, they lose their minds, he says. What happens? These people, Vyasji says, that in war, even the wise are out of their heads. Okay? And Parikshit is also telling us that obviously war brought about destruction. War is destructive, but even the people who are victorious are too at a big loss. जो उनको victory मिली है ना, वो भी एक huge loss के बाद मिली है. Then why war when it is such a senseless, useless thing? Then why war should take place? Why should people fight? And the similar case, this myth Hussein has used, in which context? He has used it in the context of India and Pakistan. He says that both of them have the Brahmastra. Brahmastra यहाँ किसको बोल रहे हैं? The nuclear weapons. And if they use it, it will again mean the destruction of the whole world, and they will not get anything out of it. So through this, Hussein is trying to propagate that war should not take place. There should be peace talks. Peace talks should be done so that things can be settled and without causing damage to the humanity. Everything should turn out to be good. There can be peace talks between the two countries who have enmity with each other, so that जैसे कि यहाँ देखा हमने how the environment is affected by the use of these weapons. सिर्फ टेस्टिंग हो रही थी जयपुर में एटम बॉम्ब की, but how it affected the peacocks, we have read that. Okay, so the purpose of these stories which Hussein has mentioned is to the context for the main question that haunts Pakistan. They both possess nuclear weapon which will destroy both of them, and that is the modern Brahmastra. War is destructive, and even the victory, I have told you, it comes with a heavy price. And now this story, the war of Kurukshetra, it is an allegory in which the writer uses the past events and characters to comment on the modern characters and modern situations. That is how he has used this story. And through the peacock and duck, the writer suggests that modern war not only destroys the people, but it also kills the environment. This all I have already discussed with you. Now time, Hussein is telling us that it is time to learn from Kurukshetra war and live in peace and harmony. They possessed the best of weapons. They possessed such a weapon which could destroy the whole world, and everything turned out to be destructive. There was destruction all over, there was sadness all over, there was tragedy all over. But he uses these parables and fables, these stories, these myths, these legends to tell these two countries that it will be good if we live in peace and harmony. Okay, this is what you have to keep in mind, how it has been used. And remember the mention, अश्वत्थामा को क्या बोला है उसने? He is the evil spirit which is hovering in India as well as Pakistan. Okay, that is why in the end he says that when I reached Lahore, back to my country, there also I found the evil spirit of Ashwathama, what, lingering after me, following him. It was like a shadow after him. So that doesn't mean that Ashwathama was after him. No, he's trying to tell you that the spirit, evil spirit of war and destruction followed him in India, and it also followed him in Lahore, Pakistan, when he went there. Okay, so these are the stories, these are the most important aspects as far as the chronicle of the peacocks are concerned. I hope अब आपको समझ आया होगा. Significant चीजें क्या हैं? Number one, the question senselessness of war raised by Parikshit, वो हुसैन ने यूज किया है in the context of India and Pakistan. Second thing, he is trying to tell us that war is destructive and those who are victorious, उनको भी बहुत बड़ा price pay करना पड़ता है. And third thing, he is saying that war is senseless because it destroys the world and it also affects the environment in which these living creatures are present. So, highlighting the anti-war theme of the story, Hussein uses all these myths and fables to explain his point. ठीक है? I hope अब आपको जो main aspects हैं a chronicle of the peacock के, वो of the peacock, वो clear हुए होंगे. ठीक है? Still कोई doubt है? You are free to ask. अब the dog of Tetwal की बात करते हैं. The dog, of course I told you, he becomes what? He becomes the innocent victim of the enmity between India and Pakistan. The story shows that to what extent the bitterness, the hatred of the two armies can reach, that they don't even have mercy on this poor little thing. If it belongs to Pakistan, India wants to shoot the dog. If it belongs to India, the Pakistanis want to shoot it. Okay, here Hindustani and Pakistani word have been used. And just time pe ye set hai. Partition has already taken place. It is the next year of the partition, but still the soldiers, they are ranged in their armies. They are at their what should I say, at their camps. Okay, and nothing is taking place. They do not have many weapons with them. Only one fire or two happens to take place during the day. Now, the somber, sad and tragic. Somber, which is sad, and tragic atmosphere, atmosphere which prevails over there at Tatewal, where the two armies are launched, and the song of Waris Shah that has been used over here. It again highlights the tragedy. It again highlights the senselessness of war. He Raja ki story hai. Muslim lovers, they are far away from, they were somehow separated from each other, and through this story or through this song, who was the writer? Manto is trying to elaborate or focus on the theme of anti-war in the poem. Okay, though that is why I said you it is a plain narrative, but then what he is doing, he is trying to tell us the bitterness, the hatred that exists in the hearts of the soldiers of Hindustan and Pakistan. Now, whether it is a dog or whether it is human beings, it doesn't matter to them, because see, when the dog is killed, Himmat Khan, Pakistani soldier, he calls him what? He calls him a martyr. He apne desh ke liye shaheed ho gaya. But Harnam Singh, who is Indian and who thinks that dog is a Pakistani dog, he says he died a dog's death. Which means he was a Pakistani and he died the death of he got the death of a dog. Okay, that is what is being tried to highlight here. That is what Manto is trying to tell us. And apart from all these aspects of war, there is another aspect which Manto has touched in the story, is that he is talking too much, explaining too much of nature that is prevalent over there, and how one little fire affects the serenity kya hoti hai, the calmness of nature over there. Okay, so plain narrative hai the dog of Tatewal, whereas a chronicle uses stories to bring out the stories from the past to bring out the theme. And both Manto and Hussain, they are preaching their moral stories using animal figures. So we can say that they are more of fables. Moral lesson exactly nahi de rahe. Obviously it is a moral lesson, we can say, because they are trying to say them that don't fight. War is useless, war is destructive, nothing comes out of war but destruction. Even for the victorious, they too have to lose so much in the war to be victorious. Okay, I hope both the stories will be more clear to you. अब आप जो main aspects हैं दोनों stories के उसको समझ पाओगे. Remember, it is a plain narrative and this story uses stories from the past to bring out its theme. And what is the theme? They both are anti-war stories. Clear? अब पढ़िए, दोबारा से पढ़िए, story पढ़िए, hear the video lecture if you have not, and try to understand what Manto is trying to tell you. Manto की बहुत 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 popular story है. If you happen to read, if you like to read, that is Tauba Tek Singh. आप उसे ज़रूर पढ़िएगा. You will really like it. And not just Manto. Partition literature जो है ना, it gives you shivers. हिल जाते हैं एक बारी को. To study, to read what kind of emotional trauma that many people went through at the time of partition and even after that. Okay? That is all about the discussion of the stories. I hope अब आपको concepts clear हुए हो. Thank you so much.